Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the DataON Virtual Academy webinar. Very happy to be here again. I've been talking to you guys every week, and our goal is to share with you interesting and relevant content that we believe will help our audience, our customers, to continue to innovate and to help you guys design your next level, next generation technology. So for today's webinar, we're very, very happy to have two distinguished speakers from our partners. The topic today is really scale out storage workload on Azure Stack HCI. You will learn that Azure Stack HCI is one of the key infrastructure that Microsoft has put together, and DataON continue to work with our partners to develop that solution. And we believe scale out storage is a very critical workload that a lot of our customers are currently using this infrastructure to run their storage. So as a quick introduction, we have Motti Beck, Senior Director from Mellanox, will be here to talk about Mellanox network, their technology, how they're enabling hyper-converged infrastructure with their technology and network. And we have Barrett on Western Digital, who's a Senior Technologist. Barrett will share their roadmap and how Western Digital, as a storage company, is really building around new technology to help the growth of the market as well. So we have two incredible technical speaker here today, and to share their technology and how it's really a critical part of the design component of design architecture for DataON and our solution. Just some housekeeping items. Make sure you keep muted during the webinar. Open to questions. If you have any questions, feel free to jump in and type in the question. I'll try to get to the question, and we want to make it as interactive as possible. And if you need to reach us, we all have Twitter handles, so you can reach us via Twitter, or just email us if you have any questions to get additional information. So my name is Howard Lowe. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing, and I want to start off with continuously with our webinar is really to give you a high-level view of what we see in the marketplace, talking to our customer, talking to our partner, and really the direction we see what a lot of IT decision maker, IT admin is looking at is really the hybrid cloud, and going through that journey and how that journey looks for each company is really different because your infrastructure is different, and because your workload is different, and because your data is different. So that journey could look different for everybody. However, all these decision factors as you go through that journey are very similar, right? And as we work with our customer, our goal is to continue to help you manage these decisions to make sure the sound decision is made. And in no particular order, I think number one of the key factors in the decision process as you go through this hybrid cloud and HCI journey is looking at the apps and how your apps can be managed across the infrastructure you built. Whether or not the infrastructure is on-premise, whether or not your infrastructure in the cloud, but how does these legacy actually scale across different platforms? Ability to manage that process is very critical, and we have gone through that with many of our customers. When we migrate VMs, you have to make sure these apps and these BIOS, these firmwares are up to date to make sure it works for your customers. Number two is really understanding the strategy of what a hybrid cloud is. Not everybody will go to the cloud. Not everybody will keep everything on premise. The pendulum shifts back and forth. However, you have a choice. There's a lot of technology out there that allows you to build a solution that's right for the cloud. Maybe it's in a web server, you want to make sure it's always on, or something that's more data sensitive where you want to keep it on premises. As a result, knowing how you design the architecture for your workload will dictate the solution you choose, right? The third is really looking at your infrastructure, the aging infrastructure, and looking at how to refresh those infrastructure with the latest technology, consolidations, optimization of our solution. We believe the Microsoft solution with Azure Stack HCI is a great solution in that aspect. There are other solutions out there, but we believe Microsoft has absolutely invested a lot of resources for the last 10 years to make sure the technology they built and the solution we work with them to deliver for the customer is the right solution for that transition in process. Making sure your apps are modernized and using the latest technology like containers, like Kubernetes, are a trend that our customers are definitely looking at. Virtualization is clearly the dominant direction that 86% of our customers are virtualized. However, containerization are also a direction that we see definitely many customers going to. Lastly is how do you manage that process? Making sure you can manage the cloud and hybrid on-premise environment seamlessly, and making sure you have the tools necessary to deliver that solution. In that same topic, you'll see that this is not just a thought, it is real because number tells you it's real. The size of HCI market is a $12 billion market and growing. The size of Kubernetes market by 2025 by IDC is 8.2 billion. Your peers, other infrastructure, other IT manager are making decisions on hybrid cloud. 91% of the survey says, yeah, we're considering hybrid cloud and what that means to our environment. Storage continue to grow. A lot of IT are looking at the edge. How do we take application to the edge in addition to our data center? And more importantly, looking at the solution as a totality and how that impacts the organization. All these are data points that really tells us that yes, this is a true trend that we need to really take it seriously. As we look at this transition, we believe that Microsoft and Microsoft Azure is really a key driver towards a hybrid cloud environment. And there are many components of it. But one of the key announcements Microsoft has made on last Ignite and continue to update is the concept of Azure Arc and Azure Arc hybrid services. What does that mean? It means that there should be a seamless platform to manage both your cloud infrastructure and your on-premise infrastructure. There has to be a bridge that bridge those two together. And we believe Azure Arc, where Microsoft's been really putting a lot of resources, is that right direction. You have the ability to have that single pane of glass looking at your cloud and manage on-premise, whether or not it's Azure Stack HCI, whether or not it's your legacy servers, whether or not it's the edge infrastructure, you should have visibility across all of them. But with all that said, it is very important to understand the importance of data governance, security, ransomware. We had a great session webinar 2 weeks ago with Dean talking about backup, DR, design, architecture, how to make sure you have isolated admin for ransomware. All that are best practices to look at the data governance. And more importantly, Microsoft take that very seriously, and security is the utmost importance in the design. So all this collectively are what we believe is really driving the hybrid cloud direction. As we look forward, you'll see that Microsoft Azure Stack is a solution we believe is that consolidation point. And DataON is in the forefront of continuing to innovate around that architecture and deliver the right solution for our customer, and working with Microsoft to deliver value-added feature like Must for visibility and management. Not just us talking, customers. DataON has many customers. We have over 650 enterprise customers deploying Windows Server solution, and half of them are hyper-converged infrastructure. And it really spans across different verticals. You have federal governments, you have financial services, you have K-12 schools, SLID customers, medical customers. All these customers are working in deploying Azure Stack HCI solution for their workloads. It doesn't have to be the entire primary data center. It could be a specific workload. They build an Azure Stack HCI solution to manage that solution and make sure it's optimized. So yes, this is happening. Enterprise companies are deploying Azure Stack HCI, and really they're embracing the power of hybrid cloud and taking advantage of it in their infrastructure. And as we continue the series of Virtual Academy, you'll see that the theme of workload optimization will come up. You know, when we talk about workload in Azure Stack HCI, we look at multiple workloads, but the more prominent one that we always see our customer running and really loading on the workload are workload like the edge. How do you run an edge workload with Azure Stack HCI 2-3 node switchless? Can we optimize Azure Stack HCI to look at Shield VM as a virtualization platform for trusted VM? Right? How do we make sure that as we deploy Azure Stack HCI, how is it optimized for VDI? which is very, very important given the current environment, COVID-19, where you want to have remote worker access all the application, and how VDI, WVD are the transition points, right? We have a lot of customers running Azure Stack HCI for a SQL workload because of performance database driven, and also Kubernetes. But today, the discussion is talking about scale-out storage. How scale-out storage is a very popular workload that our customer is running on Azure Stack HCI to really address the storage need as they move forward. And moving forward, you'll see the theme of workload optimization will continue to address each of the workload moving forward. Without further ado, I will pass the baton to Motti, and Motti will talk about networking in Mellanox or NVIDIA. Welcome, Motti. Motti, are you up?
Thank you, Howard. Again, I'm actually with NVIDIA those days. Last week, we were acquired by NVIDIA after 1 year of waiting. So it was so short time to change the slide, so I preferred to leave it with Mellanox. So I would like actually to start with a slide that gives a very high view, architectural view of why the DataON Microsoft Azure Stack HCI solution is so good. In the left side, you can see actually the traditional deployment, which includes the Ethernet and the fiber channel. These solutions still run, still will do the work, but as you can see that it's very complicated, very expensive, and there are a lot of issues between configuration of the compute that runs over Ethernet and the storage that runs over the fiber channel. This one will still continue, but what we see recently when the cloud actually started to do the dominated deployment in the market, fiber channel is not being used in the cloud anymore. So the shift is toward the Ethernet, and this is exactly what Microsoft did in the Windows Server 2012. They introduced the SMB 3.0, specifically SMB over RDMA, that they call SMB Direct, that makes the transition or the communication of data between the compute and the storage fast and reliable. And they are supporting actually two configurations. One of them is what I call, or the market called converged, that there is a dedicated server for the compute over Ethernet, and there are dedicated server for storage, also over Ethernet, and can run today up to even 200 gigs per second if you wish. And this is for deployment that you need very high scalability. If you don't really need about high scalability and you can run your data center over small cluster up to 64 nodes, you can use the Hyper-converged where storage, software storage is being used, and then you can plug in the NVMe devices into the same server that runs the compute. And this is why actually the communication and the networking and the performance of the NVMe are so much important, because suddenly you need to support both tasks that used to be done in a separate networking on the traditional approach. So the networking and the NVMe, both of us are here, are pretty important from the performance point of view to increase the efficiency of the deployment. So if I go a little bit dive and to the guys that don't know exactly, and it's going to be a very short explanation why the RDMA, remote direct memory access, is so much better, this slide actually can explain it very easily. On the left side, you can see the traditional TCP/IP. It will work, but it's pretty complicated and takes a lot of CPU cycles to run the protocol stack. There are multiple copies from one state to the other, and on the transmission side, the file server on the client side. So yeah, the work will be done, but it's not as efficient as RDMA, that basically the CPU tells the I/O system, the remote RDMA NIC, please move this block from here to there, tell me when you are done. So pretty much when you are running it, there is very minimal usage of the CPU. It bypasses the operating system that helps with the CPU or the jitter or the latency jitter. So the overall performance is much, much better, specifically when it has to come to storage. And this is why Microsoft at the time decided to replace the fiber channel and to come with Ethernet, RDMA, the SMB3 direct or SMB direct as the protocol, and above that they started to build the storage spaces direct as the overall solution. So this gives you a pretty good understanding, I believe, why RDMA is so much more efficient. And if we compare actually the benchmark that they published at the time, and it's still valid, they did a comparison between the low level on the performance itself, on the throughput, and it pretty much doubles the performance. It's not just double the performance for the bandwidth point of view, it also reduces the latency. There is a link here if you'll be able to see later about the details themselves, and the overall efficiency is much better, and the reliability and the overall compared to the fiber channel is pretty clear, taking also into account that the fiber channel today, the maximum speed that it can support is 32 gigs per second, while Ethernet is already on the 200 gig, so you can do the multiplication by yourselves. And just to illustrate a little bit more what is going on, and this is also there are a couple of papers that shows exactly the reasons. On the left side, you see the TCP/IP. The TCP/IP is a pretty heavy protocol stack. The CPU need to use a lot of cores if you want to run it in a line rate. Of course, you can allocate 1 core or 2 cores, but then you are not going to get the line rate that you want. So up to 50% of the cores of the CPU, of one of the CPU, can be used just to run the TCP/IP protocol. That is nothing to do with the application itself. And we need the CPU to run the application. So why not to offload it to the subsystem, to the I/O subsystem, and get most of the cores ready to run the application. So this is the illustration that illustrates the best what is going on when you're running storage over RDMA. But it's not just about performance. There are the 2x performance, the latency. It's pretty important. Also, when you are using the NVMe, the NVMe are much better, of course, than the old hard disk drive, and the CPU utilization. So when you are running the Azure Stack HCI over the most efficient network and the most efficient, I would say, high-performance NVMe, like DataON is doing, then you are getting the best performance when you are deploying such a system in your solution, in your data center. One of the things that we did, actually, if in the past we used to, it was a need to configure the switch to make the network reliable to run RDMA using priority flow control or global pods or ECN. About a few months ago, Mellanox introduced a technology that we called zero-touch RoCE. And the zero-touch RoCE basically helps you to deploy the RDMA or to deploy the Azure Stack HCI without any switch configuration. Very, very similar or the same, not as you are using TCP/IP. So it can run on a bare metal, it can run in a virtualized environment, it can run overlay, the VXLAN, Genève, by the way, with offload. So whatever you are using today, RoCE can be very similar to the TCP/IP, and actually you don't see any difference. You just need to configure the NIC to run in RDMA like you are doing in any case, and that's all. There is no configuration that is needed. And in the past, people were, asking about such a solution, and we were able to provide it about 6 months ago. And the performance is about the same. The performance is about the same, and this is one of the benchmarks that we published in the market. You can start using it with our actually previous tool generation ago, our ConnectX. And you can see here a performance, a comparison between the TCP/IP, between the lossless, which is using the priority flow control or ECN or both of them together, or the zero-touch routing. So there is a little bit degradation on the performance when you are using the zero-touch routing compared to the lossless, not much, but definitely you can see a very high difference between the RDMA to the TCP/IP. By the way, on the read side, you don't see as much as difference compared to when writes are involved, because on the read side, there is a caching mechanism, so about 70% probably can be cached, so the network doesn't come into the play. So this is actually what I wanted to mention about Mellanox. Probably you already know us. We are the end-to-end providing everything that you need, from PCI to PCI networking, including the NICs, including the switches, including the cables, all the standards up to 200 and pretty soon 400 gig as well. And with this one, I'll move it to Barrett. Please, that will go over probably the Western Digital NVMe.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Motti. So again, my name is Barrett Edwards. I'm a senior technologist here in the Western Digital's platform team. So I work on our cold storage products and technologies. And so unsurprisingly, today I'm going to talk about the storage aspect of some Azure Stack solutions that we partner with DataON. And I'm going to cover the basics of a hard drive enclosure, and then I'm going to describe how that enclosure fits within a certified Azure Stack solution. And then I'm going to cover how you can modify that solution to scale to support different workloads. And then I'll also cover some unique Western Digital technologies in the enclosure that enhance both the performance and reliability of the drives that are contained therein. So let's see here on this first slide. Okay, so the enclosure I'm talking about here today is the UltraStar Data 102 hybrid storage platform. So this is a 4U enclosure. It has 102 hard drive bays, and those hard drive bays can be either dual port SAS for high availability, or they can be single port SATA if you're focusing on a solution for low cost. So with our recently announced 20 terabyte host managed SMR hard drives, the enclosure can hold an aggregate raw capacity of just over 2 petabytes. If you're using traditional CMR drives, traditional recording, our 18 terabyte drives we just announced would yield a capacity of just over 1.8 petabytes. So whatever technology that you use, we can set up a huge amount of capacity in these enclosures. And so in addition to hard drives, 24 of the bays can be used with SAS SSDs. So if you need a hybrid solution with flash and disk, this supports both. And so the enclosure uses 12 gigabit SAS for host connectivity. One differentiating feature with this enclosure is that it uses 6 mini SAS HD ports per I/O module on the back of the enclosure. Typical enclosures of this size have a maximum of 4 of those ports. And so where this matters most is when you want to scale out the host connectivity, which I'll cover here on a later slide in just a minute. And so the last thing I wanted to highlight on this was toolless serviceability of the enclosure. So the I/O modules, fans, drives, power supplies can all be hot swapped without any special tools. And so that's just the enclosure itself. And now I'm going to describe how this kind of fits into the Azure Stack solution. And so shown here is a certified solution that we partnered with DataON to build, and it is called the HCI 668. And so this is a traditional 2U dual socket Intel server, certified to run Windows Server 2019, and it's paired with our 4U hard drive enclosure and high-speed networking. And so with this solution block, you can scale to support several different types of workloads. And so just looking here on this next slide, with one enclosure and one server sitting on top of it, you have all that capacity hosted through one server. Now, this is great if you have big data environments, if you have a file system that only needs a certain amount of performance. This works great. It's cost optimized and cost focused. If you have an application that is compute limited, you can scale this solution by adding more compute nodes, but still with the same hard drive enclosure. So in this solution here in the middle, you would configure a fourth of the hard drives to be SAS zones to one of the servers. Each one of the servers would have dual SAS cable connectivity to the enclosure, so they're all redundant and highly available. So if you bump a cable, you don't lose your storage connection. And so a typical 4U JBOD that comes with a max of those 4 SAS ports per IOM limits the scale out capabilities to a maximum of 4 hosts. So with 6 ports per IOM, this enclosure allows you to scale 50% more compute nodes for the same number of hard drives. So with one solution here on the left, you can scale to support several different workloads of different sizes or different amount of compute requirements. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is some of the technologies that are unique in this enclosure. And the first one I want to talk about is a vibration isolation technology we call IsoVibe. So vibration and heat are the two great enemies of hard drive performance and reliability. So as you know, within a hard drive, there is an arm mechanism that sweeps out over the platters of magnetic media, and those platters have hundreds of thousands of tracks per inch. So that reader-writer head that's on that arm is trying to locate a track that's only, a few micrometers wide. So any type of mechanical vibration, that's transmitted from the enclosure into the drive may bump that head off the track that it's accessing. So if this happens during a seek, your seek performance will be lower. It takes the head longer to find that track and actually read your data, which results in lower IOPS from your drive. Or if it happens during a read or a write IO, the head gets bumped off that track and we have to wait the entire amount of time, about 140 milliseconds, for the platter to spin all the way around before we can take a second chance at trying to read that data again. So if it happens during those kinds of events, it reduces your bandwidth. And so the IsoVibe solution is a technology we came up to reduce mechanical vibration from being transmitted from the enclosure into the drive. So shown here is a picture of the drive connector on the baseboard of the enclosure. So the connector is on a paddle board that functions a little like a diving board that allows the drive and the enclosure to basically move independently of each other. There's only a very small connection of printed circuit board material that connects the main baseboard to that connector. And so this significantly reduces the vibration that's transmitted from the other drives or the fans on the back of the enclosure into the drive. And those two things, the other drives in the enclosure and the fans, are the two primary sources of vibration in the enclosure. And so that's the first technology. So the second technology that we have has to do with cooling and heat flow. So customers continue to want to lower costs, and a couple ways that they accomplish this is, for one, they want to pack more drives into an enclosure. Therefore, you reduce the cost per slot or the slot tax of that enclosure for those drives. And so you see now 100 bay, hard drive enclosures are now becoming the norm as customers are looking to continually pack more and more drives, into the enclosure. And then a second way that customers want to reduce costs is by reducing the cooling, in their data center, and that raises the inlet air temperature to all the equipment in the data center, especially, hard drives like this. And so both of these actions really make life hard, for a hard drive. And so with a standard front to back cooling enclosure, as shown here, those drives in the rear part of the enclosure get pretty hot. All that air gets preheated by the rows of drives or the increasing number of rows of drives, earlier in the chassis. And so our hard drives have a max operating temperature of 60 degrees C, and with those things combined, a very deep enclosure combined with higher inlet air temperatures, it starts to get pretty difficult to keep those drives below 60 C in their operating temperature range with those two factors. So even if the drives don't exceed, their maximum operating temperature range, those higher temperatures, that environment puts greater stress on the drives and reduces performance and causes higher failure rates. So to address this challenge, we've segmented the enclosure into 3 regions. So the first region is the first set of bays, the first 4 rows of bays, which hold 54 hard drives. And then the second row, or the second set of drives, the rear part of the enclosure, which holds 48 drives. And then there's the I/O module and the power supplies that are in the middle. So the first thing that we do is we channel the air from the first set of drives out to the edges of the enclosure to a dedicated air channel that is then funneled toward the back, toward the fans of the enclosure. So what this does is it takes all that preheated air from the first 4 rows of drives and it redirects it away from the rear enclosure, or the rear drives of the enclosure. And so then the next step that we do is we pull cold air through a dedicated center channel in the middle of the enclosure to feed the rear 4 rows of drives in the enclosure. So you can see here, at least in the color scheme, the rear drives now get fresh air. That the 5th row of drives gets a fresh set of air, and now those drives don't get as much preheated air at the back of the enclosure. And then the last channel that we do is we suck air through that channel for the IOM and the power supplies, so they also get a cool set of air. So all in all, the result here is that all the components in the enclosure have a lower heat profile. They're able to be kept at a lower air temperature, which improves reliability, improves performance. But then there's one other side benefit that comes with this is if all the drives are being able to be cooled quite a bit more efficiently, we can reduce the fan speed on the back of the enclosure. So the enclosure isn't as loud. I'm sure you've been in a data center where you got a bunch of 1U servers and a bunch of screamer fans. So it's a reduced fan noise, for the operators of the environment or the data center. But also there's also a strange characteristic. The fan noise is actually another agitator of drive performance. So when you think about vibration, you think about the humming, like the physical vibration of the chassis, like the chassis is kind of buzzing with all of the spinning drives and the fans. But the actual sound, that acoustic noise, travels within the enclosure through the air channels, hits the drives, and causes vibration errors within those drives. So the isovibe technology that we built reduces a lot of transmission of vibration through the enclosure of the drive itself. But by reducing the fan speed at the back, we also reduce the amount of sound vibration that is agitating the drives. And so combined, they have a great effect on improving device performance and reliability. And so they sound like kind of small, in their impact for a run-of-the-mill JBOD, but their impact really does add up. And so we looked at the failure rates of our drives, both in our enclosure that has this technology and in enclosures that don't have this technology. And what we discovered is there's over a 60% reduction in failure rate due to just vibration and heat. So when we put drives in this enclosure, they fail substantially less often than when we put them in another industry or third-party enclosure. So now, while Western Digital still stands by our drive warranties to replace drives when they fail, but with a substantially lower failure rate, you're going to be servicing your drives far less often because they just operate better. They work a lot better when they are colder in a vibration-free environment. So, just in summary, just going over this again, we've partnered with DataON to develop a certified solution for Azure Stack that is pre-certified for Windows Server 2019. And you can scale that solution to meet whatever performance workloads that you need on the compute side by segmenting the amount of capacity or number of drives per server. And then the innovations that come in these enclosures really do make a difference in the reliability of your deployment. And so with that concludes kind of my portion. So I'll hand the time back to you, Howard.
Thank you, Barrett. That was really cool. I did not realize all this awesome innovation that we've been having in these JBODs we sell. We actually sell a lot of these scale-out storage because a lot of our customers not only require the compute, but they're really focusing on the storage aspect of their workload. And your JBOD, whether or not it's a 60-bay or 102-bay, has been an incredible platform for us to use in our design to address these workloads. It's been a great solution for us as well. And believe it or not, we do have a 102-bay platform in the market too. One of our customers is running a 2-node Azure Stack HCI today. It was a very cute picture on Twitter like 2 years ago. Thank you so much. There's a question in the audience today, Motti, I think this is for you. The question is, do you still need switches with DCBX capability if you do the lossless Ethernet connection or switch?
No, I believe that it's when you are running the ZTR. And the answer is no. If you want to run over lossless, then yes, you need the DCBX, and because you need to use the priority flow control and the ECN. But from the other side, with zero touch Rocky, you don't need it. It's a very simple configuration. And it will run the same performance as on lossless. So the answer is no.
Got it. Hey, Barrett, one thing you mentioned in your presentation and something that we've been really applying in our design for Azure Stack HCI is the ability to zone your JBOD into, I think a 60-bay could be zoned into 4 different zones, essentially 4 different separate IO SAS that each of the servers could connect to. So you don't need to have 4 JBOD to your environment. You can have a single or 2 JBOD. How does that work? Because not a lot of people have that capability technology-wise.
So yes, the enclosure supports SAS zoning, and so this is something we offer standard on these 2 enclosures, and that's part of the benefit that we have. We write all the switch firmware on those SAS expanders that are in the enclosure. We have a lot of experience with SAS both on the drive side and the enclosure. And that's part of the value that we offer is we test everything and verify everything works. We tweak the firmware if it needs to be, or if there's something that needs to be tweaked in the hard drive firmware. We're one company. We call those guys up, our friends over in the hard drive firmware land, and they can change whatever is needed to make sure we have an end-to-end solution that functions, without issue.
Thank you. That's really cool. So I'll do some updates from our side of it, and we'll go back to some more questions. Many people already know DataON. If you don't know, we've been around for about 30 years as a technology company, and our job is to service our enterprise customer with the right technology. And the technology that we really focus on is Microsoft, and working with our partners like Intel, like Mellanox, like Western Digital to deliver that solution that can run your workload today. So DataON really is a focused company around hyper-converged infrastructure and hybrid cloud. But more importantly, I think for those people that doesn't know, Microsoft as a company really has spent a lot of effort and time in developing the stack, the software stack to run the software-defined data center networking storage under the hood for Azure Stack HCI. And they have not only have many partners and SKU like DataON, but they have been recognized in the marketplace. Gartner specifically recognized Microsoft as a visionary. First year they came out to announce in 2016 their storage basis direct Azure Stack HCI solution. And I'm sure in a very short time they will become a leader like many of the HCI vendors. Last year there was a pretty big study done by Storage Review, which they were evaluating the capability of Microsoft Azure Stack HCI. And after the review, they announced that they were picking this solution as the Editor Choice Award in 2019. So Microsoft really has been proven as a solution leader in that marketplace, and DataON is very happy to be part of that entire journey out today. I talked about earlier that when we look at the overall solution, it's about the entire architecture that we need to help the customer. And that solution doesn't just mean a server or storage. It means the entire hybrid cloud solution. So DataON as a company continue to deliver solution and services that address our customer needs. Today, we deliver Azure Stack HCI as a hyper-converged infrastructure. We talked about in a couple sessions back that we also help our customer with business continuity, specifically backup and DR, where you can use Azure as a backup, you use Veeam as a backup, you create DR side to make sure that there's business continuity and security. But at the same time, DataON spent a lot of effort to continue to enhance the capability of monitoring and management with our Must software solution, which is fully integrated with the Windows Admin Center, allows you to have more visibility in that infrastructure. So in a single pane of glass, you can have your entire infrastructure in place. Lastly, as a service, DataON deliver the cloud services. We're a CSP. Not only do we help customer migration, set up cloud, but we also deliver outside services. So you can see at the end of the day, our goal is to deliver that entire solution for our customer based on their needs. All our building blocks are industry-leading technology, Mellanox network switches, Western Digital technology for storage, Intel server architecture, CPU. So you can see that we pick the best of the breed as a building block, and we take that solution and go to Microsoft for the detailed hard certification to make sure the solution itself is certified and validated by Microsoft. That's a very strong aspect of what we do to ensure the technology and solution we deliver to customer is fully backed by all the technology vendor and DataON and provide that service for the next 3 to 5 years. I want to use an example to show how we bring this together, right? You heard Barrett talk about the technology solution of storage, how they can scale out to petabytes of storage. You heard from Motti how having a fast network, high bandwidth throughput technology like Mellanox networking allows you to offload the networking aspect of it with RDMA, Rocky V2, so the CPU could do the application processing. But how does that come together in the real world? I think a great example, which we have many use cases on our website about Azure Stack HCI, different customer. One of them that really stands out is the Canadian Museum of Human Rights. We have a video on our website that talks about their experience. We have a use case on our website and on the Microsoft website. But at Canadian, they've been evaluating going to software-defined for 5 years. And that journey really took 5 years. They were a NetApp shop, fiber channel SAN shop, traditional 3-tier architecture, but they knew they wanted to go to software-defined, and they made that Microsoft choice. And when they made that Microsoft choice, they engaged with DataON to deliver that solution. What they did is they really refreshed the entire architecture, the entire museum, with 3 different clusters. They have a cluster that's all flash, NVMe, the best of the breed, to deliver their SQL, their primary database workload that requires performance. They have another set of hybrid solutions for bulk storage, for backup. They need capacity. They need petabytes of storage, but they're running Azure Stack HCI for backup. Then they have another backup for Veeam that integrate with cloud. So all these are solutions they delivered in their solution last year, and DataON helped them architect that solution. In this picture, the goal is to depict what they had. On number 1, you'll see that they did a hardware refresh from a SAN to HCI. There was 2 main clusters. One is the all-flash, which is a 6-node cluster or 4-node cluster, all-flash NVMe. They're running the production workload. The initial phase, they also deploy a 4-node server plus JBot, exactly what Barrett showcased in his slides, right? Where they populate the 60 bay with 24 drive, half of the drive. So they have that 4 nodes converged storage to run their bulk storage backup. Also on top of it, you'll see they have the 40 gig Mellanox switches. The switches is to manage the east and west traffic to allow the storage traffic to move at an RDMA speed very fast for rebalancing, for everything else you need to do for storage. They connect the switch up to their core. Now they have the north and south flowing. But they didn't stop there. They knew that budget was tight, so they did a first infrastructure development to make sure they had the right infrastructure. 6 months later, they come back and they say, I want to expand our production workload and adding more NVMe drives and more server. So they added 3 more servers to their 4 node to become a 7 node server. actually a node server to have a node of NVMe solution all flash. They also added capacity. So they added another 3 sets of server plus JBOD for their bulk storage. But they didn't stop there. They also added drives because there was additional half a slot within each JBOD they could add. They bought another 30 drive for each JBOD, over 120 drive each, and put it into the JBOD, and Microsoft, as a software-defined storage solution, rebalanced the entire solution seamlessly. Now, they have over 3 petabytes of solution in an A-node solution, running two-way mirror, over 1.2 petabytes of useful capacity. So you can see the scalability and expandability of the solution in real-world application, where you can design a solution that's right for the workload, for converged storage or scale-out storage. At the same time, you can expand it seamlessly as you need by adding drives or compute nodes. So you can see the beauty of this solution, Azure Stack HCI, really for different application workload, and in this case, for scale-out storage. On the right, you'll see that this is for the Veeam backup, which they have an entire backup solution in place. So this specific customer really showcased the fact that they really truly leverage the beauty and the powerness of the Azure Stack HCI for their architecture and infrastructure. As a conclusion, the goal for DataON is continue to help our customer to make the Microsoft choice. There are many great technology out there that deliver a great solution. We believe Microsoft has the right architecture solution along with our partners, Mellanox, Western Digital, Intel, to deliver that seamless solution and experience for our customer. DataON will continue to innovate. We are a gold partner of Microsoft. We're a CSP where we continue to deliver solution over 150 petabytes of solution already in production with our customer. We'll continue to help our customer in that direction. So that concludes today's presentation, and we'll open up for Q&A. I'll have some questions for Barrett and also Motti. So for Barrett, you mentioned about the capacity of drives, and I know continued innovation is happening. What is the biggest size of hard drive, enterprise hard drive today that is on the roadmap for Western Digital?
So right now, our largest you can buy, off the shelf today is the 15 terabyte SMR hard drive. And we have announced our next generation of drives. You can go to our website and read about them. Our next generations of drives that are sampling now are 18 terabytes for CMR and then 20 terabytes for SMR.
That is a lot of capacity that you need in a single drive. Mm-hmm. That's good. I'm glad that there's a great roadmap because, believe it or not, I make fun of this capacity Weasel all day because, as I showed you in the previous slide, we're at zettabyte of data now, and data continue to explode, and there's never enough storage anywhere anyway. So I'm sure your business does very well with the large capacity drives. Hey, Motti, as you guys transition from Mellanox to NVIDIA, I have to assume that your innovation will continue. What would you like to remind our audience? What are some of the future innovation you see Mellanox with now NVIDIA to continue to help our customers?
Yeah, so what we see in the market recently is what we call the accelerated computing. This is a general trend. And as you mentioned before, it's all about the workloads that you start to run over the clusters. And the new workloads, whether it's machine learning or other, cannot run as efficient as they used to be to run on the traditional CPU. So you need actually the other ways to accelerate the data movement between specifically the storage to the application itself. And this is why the performance is so much important. And this is why actually you started to see that even the big cloud provider, let's assume that it's Microsoft, they started to use accelerated computing technologies. And as you mentioned before, hybrid cloud, the way to run on-premise with your solution and off-premise on the cloud should be compatible. And RDMA technology is being used in Azure as well. So again, the big trend that we see is, of course, the accelerated computing. GPU has to do a lot of with it. Machine learning is going to be a big trend. Also, by the way, media and entertainment. You started probably to see the media and entertainment that is moving now to video over IP because the new resolution cannot run anymore on the old technologies. IP requires the movement or the video the high resolution required a lot of bandwidth and a lot of capacity. This is why the 20 terabyte may be not enough, so we need to drive for more. Now we are talking about resolution of 8K with all the three colors and 3D and so on. So you see, you can do the calculation by yourself. So it's always more higher, faster, and I believe that your solution is just on track to address the new needs.
Thank you. We look forward to all the innovation from both Western Digital and NVIDIA, and we look forward to continue to help our customers drive their workload innovation. Thank you, Motti. Thank you, Barrett, for attending this webinar and sharing with our audience all the new technology innovations. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you for attending and looking forward to talk to you guys next week. Thank you.